Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I am John Ray, and folks, we are broadcasting as usual from inside Renaissance Bank in beautiful Alpharetta, and it is beautiful today, beautiful day. But it's always a beautiful day in North Fulton, for sure. Folks, if you are tired of the soul-crushing experience at your mega bank, if you're at one of those banks, you know what I'm talking about. Part of it involves them never wanting to speak to you personally. And that's true if you're at one of those banks. And I won't mention any names, but I can tell you one thing. The clients that come back to me, having been referred by me to Renaissance, tell me that Renaissance is big enough to handle pretty much any need you can throw at them, but they're small enough to deliver their services in a personal way. They've somehow continued to have that magic touch, and I think it's worth checking out if you're in need of better banking experience for your business. Go to renaissancebank.com to learn more. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now I want to welcome a return guest, a great friend of the show and of Business RadioX, Geoff Smith. Geoff is with Assurance Financial. Geoff, welcome.
John, it is an absolute honor and privilege to be here again. You do such a professional and amazing job, and I love coming on the show because every time I get on the show, it seems like it just gets out everywhere, and everybody is talking to me a couple of weeks into a month, and even 6 months after the show, they've seen it pop up. So I'm honored to be here.
Thank you
so much.
You keep saying things like that. I'll have you back next week.
That's the point. Bring me back.
I love it. Thank you. For those, there's about, I think, 4 or 5 people in North Fulton that don't know who you are. So let's talk to those 4 or 5 people. Tell them what you're up to at Assurance Financial. How you serving folks out there?
I appreciate you saying that. I am a loan officer and branch manager of Assurance Financial's Roswell branch. We have an office on Canton Street in downtown Roswell, but I service another office in Forsyth County, so I call it the Chattahoochee North offices. But we're an in-house mortgage lender. We loan our own money. Our engine is built to get our clients loans quickly, cleanly, and get them the most competitive rates on the market. So we offer really high level of customer service, and we just love putting people into houses.
I love it. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about you for those that don't know you and your career journey. Why mortgages? Why are you passionate? There are a lot of things you could be doing.
True.
You were a journalist for a while.
Yep.
And still, you've got the greatest newsletter around, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So subscribe to Geoff's newsletter, but that talent exhibits itself in your newsletter, your journalistic talent. But mortgages, why did you settle on this industry?
Probably no one went to their guidance counselor in high school and said, one day when I grow up, I want to be a mortgage banker. And certainly I didn't either, but I did start out in the newspaper industry. I was a journalist covering business and political news around the metro Atlanta area, and it was a fun job. Got into real estate shortly thereafter through a couple opportunities, was actually a general contractor and did a bunch of stuff there up until 2008. But a friend of mine opened an office for Assurance Financial in Atlanta, and he was someone I'd grown up with, who I trusted a lot. And it just seemed like a really good fit for me at the time. And in 2011, I went all in becoming a loan officer with Assurance Financial. And I've always been the kind of person that really enjoys getting involved in people's life-changing events. So I've done corporate jobs for a little bit, and there's nothing against that. But I really enjoy getting to sit at a closing table. For example, getting to sit at a closing table and watch a first-time home buyer's hands shake as they are signing the documents to the first house that she has dreamed about since she was a little girl. And if you do everything right, you get to see that kind of stuff. And I'm a numbers guy. I enjoy all that. I enjoy following the economy and rates, and I enjoy knowing the products. But it is really just a lot of fun to be on that personal journey with that person, whoever that may be.
Yeah, that it is an intimidating. Even if you're not a first-time home buyer, it can be intimidating. Right? Because the stack of papers is about a foot high. Yeah. And I'm being facetious, but still, and rightly, because there's so many different aspects to it.
Absolutely.
Which really speaks to a lot of differences in great experience versus not a great experience if you're in the mortgage business, if you're a client.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to get put together that you take care of for clients.
That's where we earn our money, right, is being one versus the other. So we offer a high level of customer experience. So what that means is if I've done my job as a loan officer, right, if I've communicated well throughout the process and kept my client knowing what's going on every step of the way, if I've educated them up front, if we've gone over all the numbers, and I'll sit there and I'll do the same thing with someone buying their fourth house versus someone buying their first house. We will go over every number and every process of the home buying cycle. It's not just about the loan because it's a big endeavor. I do this every day, so it's all pretty simple for me, but I got to understand that most of my clients, they don't. And this is for almost all of them, this is their biggest investment. So yeah, everybody's hand wants to shake a little bit at that closing because it's a big moment for most people. You're either like an empty nester moving out of the house that you raised your family in and into that next stage in life, or you're moving up because you got a nice promotion or your family grew, so you're getting to move up into that bigger house. Or again, maybe you're that first-time home buyer getting to get your first house. So it's important that we offer good communication, that we offer good education, that we're organized and on top of everything and follow the loan all the way through the process so there are no surprises. And if we do all that in the background, then hopefully they can just enjoy picking out furniture and thinking about their next life.
That's what it's all about. Geoff, let's talk about what makes you good at what you do. I think you mentioned some of that. Right.
I have. Yep.
Yeah. But what is it? And maybe the way to talk about it is you can get a mortgage without really having a loan officer, right? You can do it in the mega bank way, if I can say it that way.
Yeah, I'll tell you, since I got into the industry, people have been telling me that my job will be obsolete in 5 years. Right?
Have they?
Oh yeah. It's going to be all automated. It's going to be easy. People are going to take over. The big banks are going to take over. And I'm still just as valuable as I was the day I started. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It is a complicated process to put a loan together. And people forget that we're lending out $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. And that's still a lot of money these days, right? For any institution. So it's important that everything is done correctly and in just a certain way. Now, there's a lot more checks and balances than there used to be, and I think that's a good thing. It keeps the market, it keeps things tight, and it keeps the market fluid, keeps us from avoiding a certain meltdown that we had in 2008. But if I have done my job, if I know all the rules and regulations and guidelines, then I can find an easy product for my client. They don't have to know how much work I'm doing. They don't have to know how complicated it is. But the more I know and the more I understand, the more simple it's going to seem of a job to them. And hopefully they think I didn't do any work. Hopefully I'm so good that at the end of the deal, they're like, I don't even know why that guy's here on the deal. Unfortunately, there are some situations that we run into that are very difficult, and somebody that's in a call center half a country away just can't handle.
Right.
You might have an issue with the seller. We had an issue just a couple of weeks ago where we had a seller that we had a problem in the chain of title, and we had to drive a lady, an 85-year-old woman. We had to drive her an hour and a half to the closing attorney's office to sign a document regarding a house that she used to own 25 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
She was not easily convinced to go ahead and do that.
I'll bet.
I spent a lot of time on the phone with her, just convincing her, just getting her trust. These days, nobody wants to sign anything because there's people trying to get stuff from you. So that was quite a deal. But your online lenders are not going to go that kind of an extra mile, for example.
I'm shocked to hear that. He says with his tongue firmly in his cheek. Geoff, you've talked a little bit about, I guess, making the process seamless to people. But they see how complicated it is once they get into the closing room and they see those documents. It really illustrates for them that what you've done is get them to the closing table without a lot of problems, but you've handled those problems and they don't even know it.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
That's the idea. For some borrowers, it can be a relatively simple process, right? If you're a W-2 salaried employee with plenty of money down that's been sitting in your bank for 6 months and that you haven't been using, and then everything's good with the title and the property, it can go relatively simply and easily, but you never know when something's going to pop up. And things do pop up throughout the loan process. There could be something interesting on a verification of employment that we find out somebody isn't guaranteed the certain amount of hours they were. There was something in their contract that Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac don't like. And we've got to step in and try to work a way through, not necessarily a loophole, but just use the guidelines within those big agency loans so that person can still achieve that really great rate and those really great down payment options and everything else that's available through a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, or USDA loan. Mm-hmm. And knowing those guidelines helps get them to the final closing table.
Geoff Smith with Assurance Financial is with us today, folks. Geoff, you talk about loans being complicated and maybe not so complicated. I would think most people think their situation is not complicated, right? Because we're all that way, right?
Yeah.
None of us think that it's straightforward here. I've got everything, but that's where you get tripped up, assuming that, and you really got to have your act together when it comes to buying a house these days. The market's not as tight as it was maybe a year or two ago, but it's still, at least in this area, it's still active.
Absolutely. No, you'd be surprised, John. I've had people tell me, even people that are on like their third or fourth home, hey, I'm good, Geoff. I've got great credit, making good money. I just need a pre-approval letter to buy this house. And okay.
And you're supposed to spit that out in the next hour and a half, right?
You may think so.
Yeah, right.
So one of the things, for example, small business owners, the agency loans that are out there, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, we love to do those loans, and our clients love to get those loans because those agencies basically take the risk off of the bank's shoulders by saying, if you underwrite the loan according to our guidelines, we will guarantee the loan. So now we can offer very low interest rates and everything else. So before they existed back in the 1920s, interest rates might have been 30% on a house, with the 50% down payment and had to be paid back in 5 years. Now we can go 5% down on a conventional loan with interest rates as low as 6% these days, which is very low and lower, and even lower credit scores. So we can give really great terms, but they have their guidelines and you have to fit within their guidelines. And all of them in one way or another right now are run by the federal government. So it may surprise you, John, but some small business owners, their tax returns do not reflect the true profit and loss of their business.
Now that I am truly shocked to hear.
And you might think one thing if the federal government wasn't wise about how they spend our money, but that's a whole nother story I'm not going to get into.
Yeah.
But the point is the federal government runs those agencies, so they require us to use tax returns when determining income to qualify somebody for a loan. Mm. It's not to say that it's not going to be a good loan. It's just to say that it's not going to be a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, or USDA loan. Mm. At Assurance Financial, we're always looking at ways to help people and expand our products. And if it's a good loan, we want to make sure it can get made at Assurance Financial. So we have investors that help us out, and we have bank statement loan products. So we can not look at the tax returns. We can just look at the last 12 monthly bank statements and determine your income that way. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing more and more of those these days. More and more people, business owners, are having to use those bank statement loans. Interest rates a little bit higher on it. A lot of times we'll do that loan first with the idea that maybe a year or 2 years down the road, they do some improvements on their tax returns and we can put them then in a conventional loan or whatever the other loan may be.
I love the way you say do some improvements on their tax returns. In other words, get some more W-2 income that you already really have, right? Is that a fair way to put it?
I'll tell you this, accountants, pay attention because a lot of accountants have gone from the front of the class, then they talk to their mortgage lender and find out they don't qualify, directly to the back of the class. So CPAs and tax accountants, you know the rules on lending, because while you may be saving them a chunk of money up front, you also may be prohibiting them from getting a good loan when they go to buy a house. So you may want to talk to your clients and say, are you planning on buying a house in the next year or two? If you are, we may want to think about how we do this.
Yeah, great advice from Geoff Smith. Geoff is with Assurance Financial. Okay, Geoff, so you just said something here that I think a lot of people are going to quarrel with, that interest rates are not high.
Yeah.
Say more on that.
Yeah, I will say more on that. So people don't understand, before 2008, the first time rates ever went below 5%. Let me rephrase that, okay? The first time interest rates ever went below 5% was in 2008, other than like a couple years during World War II. So 5% was a really great rate in 2008. Or in mortgage rates, I think in a healthy economy, want to be in somewhere in the 5 to 6% range. It's just that since 2008, if you lived it, it was a big deal. We were near depression back in 2008, and I was in real estate, so I probably felt it harder than most people. But we've been tiptoeing out of that ever since. COVID blew everything up and out of the water and put us in this high rate market that we're in right now. What I'll tell you is, and people ask me all the time, what are rates going to do? And my answer, and I say this jokingly, but they're either going to go up, they're going to go down, or they're going to stay the same. And
thank you for that wisdom.
Yeah, and it's true. And if anybody tells you different, they're trying to tell you they're lying. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
If anybody knows, as soon as you know what's going to happen, then you know the difference. When I was younger and started in this industry, I knew what was going to happen all the time. I thought I had a handle on it, and then all of a sudden, consumer sentiment in China would go down, and the whole economy rates would start to go up. So you never really know. All I know is we've been fighting inflation for the last 2 years. And us in the real estate industry have been right on the front line of that fight. Our business has really slowed down because interest rates went up. So the Federal Reserve has control of mortgage interest rates right now. They've raised rates because they're trying to get inflation down, right? So inflation's, very simply put, prices are controlled by supply and demand. After the pandemic, supply went way down because nobody was building stuff. Demand was still up because people still had money. So prices went through the roof, and we hit 9% inflation. The Federal Reserve raised their rate, which they knew would raise rates on everything from car loans to mortgages to small business loans. They wanted to make borrowing money expensive. And they wanted to do that because they didn't want people spending money, because they wanted to reduce demand, increase supply, and then reduce pricing, and it worked. We're down right now under 3%, in the 2% range. They want to be at 2%. Now they're at this point in time, they're looking at, they don't want to break the economy, and they don't want businesses to all of a sudden start seeing profits go down, and they need money to keep their employees on staff, and borrowing money is all of a sudden expensive. So they're now starting to see some cracks in the economy, and hopefully they're going to start lowering rates as we talk today. We've got some meetings here in 2024, 3 more, where they could lower rates. And people always ask me, when the Fed lowers their rate, Geoff, how long does it take to trickle down to mortgage rates? And the answer is it's probably already baked in. Mortgage rates are forward thinking. Yeah. So if you're making mortgage interest rates, you're trying to put your rates at a point where you think the market is going to move. And so everybody's baked in some lowering here coming up. So usually it's always when people do things that are not expected. So if the Fed lowers their rate more than anybody expected, you might see rates go down. If they lower it less than everybody expected, you might see rates go up. But it's hard to predict interest rates. And I always tell people, when it's time to buy a house, it's time to buy a house, right?
Yeah. And talk about the interplay, Geoff, between, certainly in North Fulton, and that's what we're speaking of here, because most of your business is in North Fulton. Am I right about that?
I do a lot of business in North Fulton, but I'm licensed in Georgia, Florida, Alabama, South Carolina, and Arkansas.
Wow.
Because we have a lot of people that move that get the Walmart duty and get transferred out to Arkansas for a few years.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. All these economies you talked about are fairly vibrant. So your results may vary depending on the market itself, but still most of them are fairly vibrant housing markets, right? So I guess what I'm getting to is the interplay between the additional interest rate that you're paying and interest expense which is tax deductible, by the way.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, which is you're paying that you weren't paying 4 years ago, versus the appreciation that you've had in your home over that time. Let's talk about the interplay there.
Man, I need you to be my publicist. I'm telling you.
Did I set you up or what?
Man, here in Georgia, we have the luxury of being here in Georgia. So people always say, what are we in a bubble, Geoff? Because housing prices keep going up. And what I tell people is really there's two things that could stop housing prices from going up in Georgia. Number one, the state of Georgia could stop doing such an amazing job of attracting businesses to Georgia, because they are doing an amazing job. Every year they're voted Georgia's voted the best place to do business in the whole country. So we've done a really good job of attracting businesses, and they're still attracting businesses, which means more people are going to move here. So we got a lot of people moving here, which gives us a little bit of a housing shortage these days, which brings me to number two. The only other thing that which could push housing prices down would be if home builders all of a sudden found a whole bunch of new land to start building houses on. Or if people got comfortable with 12-story condos in Roswell, Alpharetta, or something like that.
Right.
And which isn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So when I grew up in Roswell, it was easy. There were farms all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nothing for me to see a farm get sold and become a 1,000-home community. And they're now all over the place. Those farms don't really exist anymore unless you get further up into North Forsyth and Dawson and out in those areas. So because of those two factors, it's supply and demand, like I talked about before. So we've got low supply, we've got a lot of demand. People want to be in Atlanta, and it used to be low cost of living is why companies and businesses moved here. Our cost of living has gone up, but our quality of life has gone way up. Mm-hmm. Every single suburb in the Atlanta area has something really cool going on. Duluth and Suwanee, when I was growing up, and heck, even 15 years ago, 20 years ago, there wasn't much to do up there.
Right.
Now they've got vibrant downtowns with festivals and music going on every single weekend. Mm-hmm. Alpharetta, Woodstock, you just pick one. So it's just an awesome place to live. The state and the metro Atlanta area have done a great job, and our community leaders of really developing and make this a great place to live, and which is going to keep attracting businesses, and home values are going to keep going up. And so if the home values are going up, let's just say you've got a $400,000 house you want to buy, and that's a low house for this area, I understand. But let's say it goes up 5% over next year. You just lost $20,000 by waiting a year. Mm-hmm. And now you're paying interest on a higher loan amount for the next 30 years.
Right.
So I've done the math on it, and I won't bore everybody with it. If you want it, reach out to me. I'll get you a nice flyer that I made up that takes a long time to understand, but the numbers are there. Waiting does not pay.
You heard it right here from Geoff Smith, Assurance Financial. Geoff, you talked about the business owner, I forget the name you called it, but the business owner loan, the loan that's meant for business owners, that note statement loan. Yep. Thank you. What other products are out there that are new, innovative, that we need to know about?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, in the last 2 years with this, what we're calling a high rate environment, and it's really the focus has been on new home buyers, because people that already own a home are probably in a 3% mortgage and they don't want to buy. It's harder to make those people move. But first-time home buyers, it still makes perfect sense to move from a rental situation to a buy situation. And because of that, and to encourage more of that, there's been a lot of great products out there. We've got a very good first-time home buyer down payment assistance program. One of the biggest hurdles for a first-time home buyer is coming up with that cash to buy the house. We've got a program where we can lend you the full down payment. And that down payment, that loan is even forgivable if you make your payments on your first mortgage for 3 years. It's a great loan for those that need it. We've got some first-time home buyer programs now where we've got investors that are willing to offer really low rates for first-time home buyers. We've got geographical areas that some of our investors really want to have more mortgages in, so they're offering really low rates for first-time home buyers in those areas. We actually and for those that already do own a house, another situation that came up is it's very competitive in certain situations. And if it's competitive, home buyers are being forced into certain situations. And normal run of things might be if you own a house, you set up a situation where you get your house under contract and you get your new house under contract and you close on your old house in the morning, and then you go straight from there to the closing on your new house. That can be a pretty stressful dance to have to do. And it is for a lot of people, and it scares people, the idea of trying to do that, especially when it's competitive. And you've got a seller, it's a seller's market in a lot of areas right now. And you've got a seller that's calling the shots. They're going to tell you when you're going to close if you really want that house. So you don't have the option of then getting your house under contract, and it becomes a little more cumbersome to make all that work. So Assurance Financial has introduced a true bridge loan. And I'm excited about this because every time I bring it up, someone gives me a call. So I know there's a demand for it out there, and there's very few lenders. I don't know of any others right now, actually, to be perfectly honest with you, that are doing it, especially the way we do it. So our bridge loan, number one, we can give you a loan on your current house up to 80% of the value of that house. And in that 80%, we will pay off your first mortgage and we'll give you cash back for the remaining 80% to put down on the new house. So the beauty of it is it gives you that equity to use immediately for the purchase of your new house, get you out of mortgage insurance and have your down payment and everything else. But what it also does, the beauty of it is there are no monthly payments on that loan. May seem like a small deal to most people, but to us mortgage lenders, what that means is I don't have to factor that monthly payment into the debt to income ratio. So you may have a person, if you're buying a house before you sell your house, then the mortgage lender is required to qualify you based off of both of those mortgages. This bridge loan takes away one of those mortgages. And the mortgage, that bridge loan has to get paid off. We need you to sell that house within 6 months, which usually isn't a problem, especially in this market. But it's a really great product that I'm proud of. And then, of course, our bank statement loan, I'm always talking about that to small business owners. You keep getting told we can't get you a loan. We can get you a loan. So call me on the bank statement loans. It's a really great product. And there's a lot of niche products out there that if you're told you can't do it, but you think there's a good loan, give me a call, because we have a lot of niche products, whether it's a home equity line of credit that we can use towards the purchase of a house, our DSCR loan for investors. This is a really cool loan. If you own a house and you want to buy an investment property, we can do a loan where the income is only based off the potential rent of that house. If the rent is higher than the mortgage payment, then from an income standpoint, we can do the loan. So that's a really great product for investors. So at Assurance Financial, we try to say if it's a residential loan, we can do it. And if you know of one that we don't have, let us know, because we'll go find the person that's doing it and we'll become an originator for that product.
That's fantastic. Geoff, let's wrap this up. And I want to do that by talking a little bit about, I think you've mentioned a few examples of clients that are the best fits for you. You talked about business owners that don't have a lot of the traditional W-2 income. What are other great fits for you? We really are looking for anybody who wants to get a loan and have great customer service. And I know that sounds simple, and it sounds like everybody, but I love working with first-time home buyers. Absolutely love it. I love educating them. I love taking them through the process. I love working with people who bought a lot of houses and they just want something nice and simple to go on in the background. They want a professional in charge. And I love working with people who think they have a very tough loan. Tough loans and trying to get somebody that house when everybody else said they couldn't, I wear that as a point of personal pride. We do at Assurance Financial. We do everything. We are an in-house lender. All we do are residential home loans. So we have our own underwriters. We can close quickly if they need to. We can do all kinds of things that a lot of big lenders who are too mired down in their own processes can't do. We are here to do nothing but make a great customer experience for somebody looking to buy a house. Wow. Very compelling. Let's talk about success stories. I'm sure you've got plenty of them. Yep. Maybe you can share one or two that illustrate the great work you do. I appreciate you saying that. I'll think of one that we did earlier this year where we had a client who really wanted this house. This was the house for them. And there were already, I think, 9 or 10 offers on this house. And they came back to the person and the seller said, if you can close this deal, and we're about to take this other offer, but my clients, they're moving and they need this house to close and they need money to put down on their next house. If you can close this deal in 10 days, then you got the deal. So they came back to me and said, Geoff, can you close in 10 days? I said, let's do it. Let's do it. So we've got 4 appraisers on rotation. They're all they're professionals, and I brag about that because I don't know any other lenders out there that have a system like this. So we've got 4 quality appraisers on rotation. We got the appraisal back in 2 days. I had my folks sign up for it. Our underwriters jumped on it, and 10 days later, we were sitting at a closing table. Not a lot of banks can do that. Not a lot of lenders out there that can do that, and I know that. And so I was very proud of that situation. Wow.
Yep. And like the other situation I'm telling you with where we had the seller and we had that problem in the deed, and we had an 85-year-old woman who's all of a sudden getting told that she needs to drive an hour and a half on her time to go sign some document in an attorney's office for a house she owned 25 years ago. That was not an easy conversation. There was a lot of work, and there was multiple phone calls on my part. The attorney also made multiple phone calls on their part. You know, it's important to have a really good team, because problems like this was the easiest loan around. These were first-time home buyers, perfectly well qualified. We had the loan ready to go, and then something unbeknownst to them that out of their control came up, and it really required a team effort of people doing things that isn't in their job description to try to pull that thing together.
Yeah. Wow. We could probably do a whole nother show on this conversation you had with this 85-year-old woman. She thought you were some jerk.
She hung up on me the first time I called her. She hung up on me.
Of course she did.
Yeah.
Wise woman. You don't know who's calling these days for sure. Oh. When she heard that story, likely story, right, Bub?
It's really funny. So the father of the buyer, this is crazy. This is a small town story here. Yeah. So this was in a small town in South Georgia. Okay. Uh-huh. And the father of the buyer lived here in Atlanta, and I met him through the Chamber of Commerce, actually. And he's from that small town. And I explained to him the situation. He said, "What's her name?" I told him her name. He knew her sister. So he called her sister, because it's such a small town, called her sister, said, "You got to talk to this guy. He's legit." So that's how that whole thing came about. Told him, he talked to the sister. He got her to actually listen to me. And then eventually we had the listing agent actually drove her, went down, picked her up, and drove her an hour and a half to the attorney's office to make everything work. Now, he's probably got some really good conversation stories.
Oh, I can imagine. Wow, that's fantastic. Geoff, this has been great. I can't imagine there aren't some folks that hearing this interview wouldn't want to be in touch with you and learn more about how you work and make happy homeowners at the closing table. So let's tell them how they can find you.
Yep. You can obviously email me at Smith, that's G as in Georgia, Smith, at assurancemortgage.com. And I'll spell that. It's A, S as in Sam, S as in Sam, U-R-A, N as in Nancy, C-E, mortgage, mortgage.com. Or you can just call me, 678-779-5066. You can call or text. Typical process for me is we have a quick conversation. I send you a link to an application. You fill it out, and I can get you pre-approved within 20, 30 minutes. And then we get back on the phone to do a pre-approval. So, John, it's been an absolute pleasure to be here again. You do such a great job at this, and the promotional side of it is great on Business RadioX part. And anytime you call me, I'm jumping here the next day to get here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I love the way you said G is in Georgia.
That's right.
Where's the A for Auburn?
Yeah. That's where my money's going.
Yeah. We have to explain. Geoff's son is just started as a freshman at Auburn.
He did.
Which is a little tough for a Georgia fan.
It's a little tough. It was tough for him, but we were born and raised Georgia Bulldogs. Our family has really had rallied around that over our entire lives. And so him making that decision to go to their really great engineering program down there was not an easy one. But I had pictures of him in the pouring rain at the Auburn game this past Saturday, soaking wet, screaming. He's all in. He's shouting that War Eagle all day long.
Good for him. Good for him.
Yeah.
He's going to do well, I know.
He will.
Yeah, yep. That's outstanding. Geoff, thanks again.
Thank you, John. Appreciate everything you do.
Appreciate you. Hey, folks, just a couple of quick things before we let you go for today. So I talked a little bit about how Renaissance Bank serves their clients. They're serving the community, too. And one of their big initiatives for community support is the Georgia Alliance for Breast Cancer. The Georgia Alliance for Breast Cancer, their mission is to engage with the breast cancer community in Georgia to increase access to care and reduce disparities in cancer outcomes. They have a 2-day walk that covers 30 miles over 2 days. Now, this is music to my ears because the other alternative is a 3-day walk of 60 miles and you're sleeping in a tent. I like the 2-day, 30 miles, sleep in a hotel. That's my kind of walk. And folks, that's what they've got at the Georgia Alliance for Breast Cancer. And you can find out more by going to the GAABC website, which is gaabc.org. You can also find the link in the show notes. Renaissance Bank's a big supporter of this cause, both in corporately donated funds, employee donations, and participation in the walk. They invite you to come in alongside them. If you've been touched by this terrible disease in some way, you know how important it is. So go check it out. I think you'll be glad you did. Also, two more quick things. I've got a book out. It's called The Generosity Mindset, A Journey to Business Success by Raising Your Confidence, Value, and Prices. If you're a solopreneur, small professional services provider, and you've got issues around your value, understanding your value, communicating that value, your business development, or your pricing, this book is written expressly for you. Go to thegenerositymindset.com to learn more and to learn where to buy the book. Also, I just want to thank you, our valued listeners. You are valued to me because you have supported us over these many years that we have done the show. This is show number 803, folks. And when we started doing this show 8.5 years ago, I didn't think of doing 800 plus shows, but that's where we are. And we're at this point because of you. You support us in so many different ways. You send us great guests. You support us on social media. You like the shows and the guests that we offer up. And we're just so grateful to you because you help us live into our mission to be the voice of business in the North Fulton region and beyond. And I am grateful for you. Thank you. So for my guest, Geoff Smith, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.